Remember when franchises used to stop at 3 movies? Yeah, I remember that. Toy Story 5 is the fifth installment in the Toy Story film franchise. Even though the IP was originally supposed to end with 2010's Toy Story 3, and then again with 2019's Toy Story 4, it seems like we'll continue to get Toy Story movies till the end of time as long as you numbskulls continue to watch these movies in theaters.
Ching.
And I'm not kidding, that is the mindset that Andrew Stanton had when the idea of future Toy Story movies was brought up. And so far, you people have been eating these sequels up like McDonald's Happy Meals. Which I think is pretty hilarious considering some of you, not looking at anyone specifically, will jump on companies like Blue Sky or any other company's neck for making endless sequels out the wazoo, but you'll justify Pixar doing it because, oh, it's Big Daddy Pixar. They've never made a bad movie in their lives. They're just so amazing. But if they're not doing that and they're just enjoying the films, which is completely fair, then there will be some critical people like myself who will criticize Pixar for milking this franchise bone dry, but then you've got the die-hard Pixar stans that will make this dumbass comeback saying, oh, you're not okay with Pixar sequels, but you're perfectly okay with DreamWorks sequels. At least that's the mindset that Animat and Cellspick subscribe to.
At some point, we need to have a conversation on why, at the time, everyone treated the announcement of Toy Story 5 like the apocalypse, but everyone was totally fine with Shrek 5. Well, at the time.
Bullshit.
To be honest, ending the Shrek series is one of the best ideas that DreamWorks have ever made. It's sad to see a franchise that we once loved to end, yes, but in the case of Shrek, it's for the best.
But the reason why there is no one who would ever take Blue Sky seriously as a major animation studio in the veins of either Disney or Illumination is because they can't let go of Ice Age, and now it's seriously hurting their reputation. I think it's safe to say that everybody's pretty much fed up with Ice Age. So much so that just by watching this movie alone, I can even tell that the people at Blue Sky are fed up with it. The only ones who really want more Ice Age are the heads at Fox because of how stupidly profitable it is.
I actually love the fourth movie, so I'm open to the idea that this will be great.
I don't think it can speak.
But even I have to admit that any film franchise, regardless of which one, going up to movie number 5 is a bit excessive, and Toy Story is no different. So I understand and kinda agree with the argument that this is an unnecessary addition. Same with Toy Story 4. We never needed to let the franchise continue after the third film. And yet they still found a way to make that amazing.
But whatever. When it comes to the Toy Story franchise, I respect it because it's the IP that started Pixar as a company, but it's not one of my all-time favorites. In case you don't know, that honor goes to WALL-E, Ratatouille, and The Incredibles. But even with my fan favorites, I still think the Toy Story movies are pretty great on their own. They tell a cohesive story, they're very hilarious in their own right, they're pretty emotionally moving, the characters are mostly well handled, and the trilogy, as a whole, is very airtight in terms of storytelling, writing, characters, animation, emotion, everything. 1 and 2 are my personal favorites, while 3 is okay. I think it's a little overrated and people tend to hype it up a little too much, but that's just my personal opinion. That's just on me. Now we have 4 and 5, 2 sequel ideas that were really hated after Toy Story 3 was released, because everybody was in an agreement that this story should stop at Toy Story 3. There shouldn't be a Toy Story 4 or a Toy Story 5. And even then, that agreement is slowly starting to lose its luster.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next products.
Toy Story 4. I fucking love sequels. We're on the edge of the sequel. I love it.
We'll talk about 5 in a moment, but I want to briefly talk about 4. This is a very contentious sequel to talk about. Not to the point where I would personally make a 6-hour video bitching about it, but it is pretty contentious and for very good reason. On one hand, as a sequel, much like Incredibles 2, it destroys and disrespects the foundation of everything that the original trilogy stood for. But on the other hand, as a standalone movie, I kind of like the ideas of what this movie is going for.
What?
I like the idea of Woody having an internal crisis, wondering what he should do for himself instead of worrying about his kids, because he's always put his friends, Andy, and Bonnie ahead of himself. Hell, there were multiple instances in the original trilogy, Toy Story 2 and 3 specifically, where he had opportunities to do his own thing, whether it would be admired in a museum forever, or go to college with Andy. But he never took it because making his kid happy was his only purpose. And because Bonnie decided to be a vindictive little shit and not stay true to Andy's promise. I'm sorry, okay? Don't crucify me. I'm joking. Because she decided to be a regular kid and she stops playing with Woody as much, it gives him a chance to think about himself, to be his own individual, to be his own person, to be his own toy. And he finds a new purpose, which is to help other toys find their own kids with the help of Bo Peep. And that's a very interesting concept that I thought was executed very well. And I also think this movie is the funniest out of the Toy Story flicks. I got a ton of giggles and laughs out of this one than the entire trilogy combined. And also, the visuals in this movie are absolutely breathtaking.
I hate you.
Okay, now it's time to bitch. Remember how I complimented this movie's concept by having Woody have this internal crisis and wonder what he should do for himself instead of constantly worrying about his kid? Yeah, that's an interesting concept on a first viewing, but when you rewatch this movie multiple times and then you factor in the original trilogy, I really started to dislike this movie.
I don't like you.
It's literally on par with Incredibles 2 in terms of going against everything that the original trilogy stood for, especially when it comes to Woody's character arc. And even putting that aside, there's just very little to like about this movie. Forky is an obnoxious dumbass who gets over his existential crisis way too quickly. Bo's character has been completely rewritten for the sake of this movie's plot. Instead of being a fair sheep maiden, she's a capable lost toy whose skills outmatch those of Woody, which is completely ridiculous.
Ridiculous!
This class is ridiculous.
Very good.
Especially if you, again, factor in the original trilogy. The movie even blatantly tries to gaslight you into thinking this is how Bo Peep has always acted. Side note, I really shouldn't be shocked by this, considering this is the same company that wants you to think that that piece of shit 2022 Lightyear movie is why Andy got Buzz Lightyear the action figure in the first Toy Story movie instead of, I don't know, I'm just talking out the side of my neck here. The animated series that a lot of people grew up with.
No, I fucking hate you.
The new characters, Giggle McDimples, Ducky, Bunny, and Duke Kaboom, are completely forced into the plot for the sake of adding more jokes and adding new characters. And as for the characters we know and love from the previous trilogy, they do precisely nothing but sit in an RV for most of the runtime.
Isn't it interesting, Summer, that after all that stuff we just did, nothing really mattered and there was no point to it? Kinda makes you wonder, huh? About nothing.
Even Jessie, who is the most action-oriented character out of the bunch, she sits in the RV for most of the runtime. And even though Buzz does eventually get out of the RV to try to find Woody, they've dumbed down his intelligence so low that he honestly thinks that his inner voice or his consciousness are the buttons on his chest.
Fucking idiot.
And the biggest issue I have with Toy Story 4, it's just a copy of Toy Story 2. They have Woody going through an internal crisis, but instead of staying true to who he is as a character, which is a loyal toy who always stands by his kid no matter what, they basically just end it with him being a selfish shit who becomes a lost toy, abandoning Bonnie and all of his friends. The friends he's been with for years upon years. And get this, he ends up leaving Bonnie behind because he wasn't played with for 3 days.
That's the third time you haven't been picked this week.
I don't know. I don't keep count.
Oh, you don't have to. I'll do it for you.
Fucking joking me?
You guys remember how Woody and the rest of the toys went for years upon years without being played with by Andy? Still, 3 days was enough to make Woody be like, you know what? Maybe I should ditch this bitch and go be with Bo.
What the fuck, man?
And Gabby Gabby is a really shit villain. I honestly can't believe there are some people who actually think, oh yeah, I feel bad for Gabby Gabby. Even though she kidnapped Forky, she almost ripped out Woody's voice box by hand, and when that didn't work, she decided to use emotional manipulation to get him to do exactly what she wants. Give up his voice box so that she can get a kid of her own. And when things don't work out her way, the movie goes out of its way to make sure she gets a happy ending, even when it's not deserved. So yeah, it's a pretty shitty sequel, and I gave this movie a 4 out of 10. It really does rely on music, animation, and voice acting to save its own ass. And even then, even though it does have good things, I won't deny that, I believe that 4 just didn't need to exist. And for the people who actually think that Toy Story 4 is a great movie, please tell me what drugs you're taking. I want a hit of that myself so I can enjoy this movie with you. If you want to see more reasons as to why this movie is a disgusting pile of garbage that shouldn't exist, go check out Gaming Magic 13's video dissecting it.
There's the clicker. No one would blame you.
So needless to say, I wasn't really interested in the idea of a 5th Toy Story movie, especially when Pixar said multiple times during the press releases, the promotional material, and on social media that Toy Story 4 would be the final Toy Story movie. Remember that? Here, I'll flash it on screen for you. But because you dumb motherfuckers decided to go give that movie $1 billion at the box office, here's number 5. And you want to know what the big plot for Toy Story 5 is? Technology. Oh yeah, it's totally worth bringing this rotting corpse of a franchise out of its casket for the sake of a dumb plot that Robot Chicken did years before this movie even came out.
Hey there, partner! Maybe we got off on the wrong foot! How about we be friends?
How can I trust you, Woody, while Rex is trying to kill me?
You wireless bastard!
You can't save him, Woody. You can't save any of them.
Now, even though my investment in this series pretty much died at Toy Story 3, that's not going to stop me from making a review of it, because you know, the YouTube algorithm, it's quite the feisty little maggot. And there's a part of me that was rather curious to see how better or worse this one could be compared to 4. It should be fun. You guys get to see a review of Toy Story 5, and I get to make a little bit of money on the topic. So, let's grab our phones and hold them dangerously close to our face as I review Toy Story 5.
Tech's invaded our house too.
I don't know, Jesse. Toys are for play, but tech is for everything.
Set some time after Toy Story 4, as we could see that Bonnie has aged quite a bit since we last saw her. She's still playing with her toys as she did in the previous movies, and shorts if you want to take those as canon.
But I do not.
But when she sees 2 kids walking across from her house, Jessie, being the new leader of the toys and Bonnie's favorite, tries to initiate a conversation between them so they can engage in playtime, which sadly doesn't work out well. And when Jessie tries to figure out what's going on with these kids by sneaking over to their house to check up on them, she discovers that they're permanently glued to their tablets.
It's over for toys! The screens have won! And now the squirrel's gonna eat me!
Now this is where the tech versus toys tagline starts to come into play, and it makes it a million times worse when Bonnie's parents, who are not the best parents in the world, let's be completely honest, decide to get their daughter a tablet of her own, a lily pad to be exact, in the hopes that maybe she can make some friends and socialize better. Jessie tries to talk with Lilypad in the hopes that maybe they can come to some sort of understanding or middle ground, but unfortunately, they butt heads immediately because of their different worldviews and perspectives. You got Lilypad, who's more interested in making connections via social media and group chats, while Jessie believes that you should make connections in person rather than on a screen, which makes sense given her own history with Bonnie, Andy, and Emily from Toy Story 2. And trust me, this becomes relevant later.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
Feeling a little lost and uncertain of her own abilities, Jessie decides to contact Woody with a walkie-talkie. And I don't know about you guys, but this just feels like a big fuck you to Toy Story 4. Just a little bit. Because remember how Toy Story 4 ended with this climactic finale in the sense that the toys are never going to see Woody again? They've decided it's best to separate and live different lives? And what do you know, he's just a walkie-talkie away.
Shit! No! That is not happening right now! No!
And I'll talk about my thoughts on this much later. After this brief conversation where they talk about Tech, Jesse's history with Emily, and feeling like this is that all over again, Jesse then finds this random burst of confidence which leads her to come up with a plan to help Bonnie make a new friend through playtime. But during her conversation with Woody, Buzz interrupts her to ask a question. And don't worry, I'll talk about this in a second, believe you me. Which leads to a misunderstanding because since Jessie didn't turn off the walkie-talkie, Woody assumes that she must be in trouble and she needs help from her deputy. Which is really funny considering he doesn't even have his sheriff's badge anymore. Anyway, Jessie's plan goes tits up. She doesn't go with Bonnie to the sleepover. Instead, Lily Pad takes her place because when Jessie tried to introduce the toys to these kids, they looked at her like she was a baby because, you know, they have tablets and she doesn't. You gotta rip on the kid for not being up to date, you know?
Nelson, honey, where have you been? Ha ha! Ha ha! Ha ha!
Anyway, Lily Pad takes her place, and when Jessie and Bullseye are spying on Lily Pad through the glass of the house, the two accidentally get taken by an old couple and dropped off at, I shit you not, Emily's house. But don't worry, they don't go too far on the nostalgia baiting, as a completely different family lives there now, which means we're gonna get lots of member berries of Toy Story 2. And we get 3 new characters to join the fun. A potty training device named Smarty Pants, a GPS receiver named Atlas, and a camera named Snappy.
Yay!
Anyway, while Jessie's story is kicking into high gear on the nostalgia berries of Toy Story 2, Buzz and the other toys are back at the house trying to get Bonnie's attention. And speaking of Buzz, remember how I told you he wanted to pop a question to Jessie? Well, it turns out that question is a proposal for her to marry him. Because you might forget that, yeah, Jessie and Buzz were kind of a thing in Toy Story 3. Then come Toy Story 4, where these two have very little to no romantic chemistry with each other. So I guess they decided to bring that back for the sake of giving Buzz something to do. And speaking of giving another character something to do, Woody shows up to lend a hand. They also make fun of him for balding, being fat, because since he doesn't have his voice box anymore, his stuffing is all over the place, and being old. That's it. After Bonnie comes back from the sleepover, and since Jessie is not there, Woody and Buzz, I'm not seeing the other toys because they do precisely fuck all in this movie, come up with a plan to try to find Jessie so they can save her. Oh, that reminds me, there's a C-plot focusing on a bunch of high-tech buzzes who are permanently stuck on demo mode. And I swear to God, their involvement is literally comparable to a Minion sketch from Despicable Me 3. They have little to no reason to be here other than to be a plot convenience at the end of the film. And I guess they do have some cute funny moments, but that's about it. And yeah, that's basically the gist of Toy Story 5's story, recycling of plot ideas and nostalgia bait in order to carry its own weight. But because I feel like playing nice today, let's go over some of the good things this movie has to offer, because believe it or not, I think it has some good things in here.
Back there, that was amazing!
The visuals look amazing. Wow, what a shock. It's a Pixar movie. I honestly shouldn't expect anything less, especially with the amount of money that goes into these budgets. But if there's one thing I like that's a slight change from the previous movies, it's that whenever kids like Bonnie or Blaze, the new kid who lives in Emily's house, enter playtime, the animation has this stylized watercolor chalk drawing to it, and it looks really good. I'm glad that Pixar isn't going for a Spider-Verse aesthetic, especially with how overdone that style has been over the past couple of years. And as for the story, I will say jumping from Toy Story 4 to Toy Story 5, this felt like a big course correction. Like, I bet after Andrew Stanton saw the feedback, saw the meltdown that Toy Story 4 was causing, he was like, maybe we should get back to what Toy Story is really about. And for this installment, I think he did a pretty good job.
Good boy.
There's none of that lost toy bullshit in this movie, which is good because it gets back to what Toy Story is all about, being there for your children, building happy memories, and making them happy. In fact, one of the biggest fears that people had for Toy Story 5 was that the studio Pixar was just going to double down on what Toy Story 4 ended on. Woody is not being played by Bonnie anymore, so he decides to become a lost toy with Bo Peep. And considering the plot for this movie is tech versus toys, a lot of people thought, what if this movie is going to end with all of Andy's toys and Bonnie's toys deciding to become lost toys themselves? But thankfully, you guys can calm down, because that's not what this movie does. As for the commentary in this movie, it has a pretty good middle ground when it comes to toys and tech. The movie acknowledges that yes, tech is inevitable, and it can be helpful in some cases, but on the other hand, it won't help you find meaningful connections with people. You still need to go outside, talk, and interact with others. As it's shown 2 times in the flick, Bonnie and Blaze go into their group chats to talk to their friends, and all they get is a bunch of unlikable douchebags in return who also rip on the two for still playing with toys, leaving the girls to feel even more isolated and alone, which pretty much goes against what these iPads were brought for, to make friendships, to build connections, and to be sociable. The jokes in this one were very hit and miss for me. There were a couple of cute moments like Woody and Buzz discovering that they can make Lily Pad tell them what they need to know by just saying her name.
Hey, Lily!
Yes, can I help you?
Bring back that horse girl post.
Okay.
Oh, she has to do what you say.
Smarty Pants had a couple of good moments, the Buzz Lightyears had a couple of humorous bits, but as I said before, it's very hit and miss. Speaking of Lily Pad as a villain, I would say she was handled much better than Gabby Gabby from Toy Story 4. Gabby Gabby does some horrible shit throughout the movie, and despite the fact that she does these horrible things, the narrative still wants you to feel bad for her because she just wants to be with a kid, even though she did, again, horrible shit that I'm not going to go over. And even though she gets what she wants, she doesn't even do the bare minimum of apologizing to Woody for all the shit she put him through.
Fucking bitch.
Lily Pad does some horrible shit too, like taking away Bonnie's attention from her toys, kicking the toys out of Bonnie's room and into the garage, and acting like an antagonistic asshole to both Jessie, Buzz, and Woody. But at the same time, I'm giving her leeway because you can tell that she genuinely does care for Bonnie. Again, it's just a matter of different viewpoints. Lily thinks that social media will be the best thing for Bonnie to make friends, and she thinks that the toys are getting in the way of that. And, big spoiler alert, when she inevitably finds out that she was in the wrong and that's not the case, she actually feels remorseful for the things that she did throughout the film. Again, unlike Gabby Gabby. And while we're on the topic of characters, this movie does a better job of handling them than Toy Story 4, that's for sure. In the case of Jessie, even though I really don't like the memberberry aspect of her backstory being incorporated into this flick, at least Jessie stays true to the original trilogy's message, something that Woody didn't do at the end of Toy Story 4. Her character doesn't get assassinated like Woody, in fact it stays true to who she's always been, a cowgirl who is rather energetic and full of life, but still has insecurities about not being loved or valued due to her abandonment issues, which I think is really well done. And I like how there's a parallel between Jessie and the old tech toys Smarty Pants, Atlas, and Snappy, toys that were once loved and cherished by Blaze, until they eventually got abandoned due to updated technology like computers and phones and whatnot.
What? You're just gonna shove them back in the dark forever? Do you have any idea what that's like?
Oh, and speaking of the devil spawn herself, I actually felt more for Bonnie in this movie. Unlike in Toy Story 4, where I thought it was fucking ridiculous that she randomly stopped caring about Woody, even though in Toy Story 3 and the numerous short films that the franchise spawned afterwards, it showed that she still loved him and still cared for him. But in Toy Story 4, she just ditches Woody for the sake of making Jessie and Forky her favorite. Here, I actually do empathize with her quite a bit. You see, whenever Bonnie tries to make friends with other kids by introducing the idea of playtime with them, The kids look at her like she's a weirdo or a baby, because tech is seen as the more adult thing in a child's eyes. And honestly, I relate to that quite a bit, and as a result, it makes me kind of really be engaged with this story a little bit. And I say this because, come on, we've all been young once. We've all tried to make friends with kids in school, but it never works out well because they won't befriend you because of superficial characteristics like you're not wearing the right clothing, you're not wearing the right sneakers, or, here's my favorite part, you don't have an iPhone. Fucking ridiculous. And if there's one more extra pro I gotta give this movie, it's that thankfully, they do have Woody and Buzz stick together this time around. Unlike in Toy Story 4, where they were just separate for most of the runtime. So yeah, that's all the good things that 5 has to offer. Now let's rip this movie apart with all of its shortcomings.
You suck!
So guys, quick question. Do you know how one of the common criticisms that Toy Story 3 and 4 face is that they're just blatant rehashes of previous films?
Here we go.
Well, Toy Story 5 is also a rehash in its own right, of 1 and 2 combined. Jessie clashes heads with Lily Pad, Woody clashes heads with Buzz. Woody begins to have an internal crisis over his morality as a toy. Jessie begins to have her own crisis over the fear of being abandoned again. There's a side plot of Buzz and the other toys working together to try to find Woody and bring him back home. Buzz and Woody work together to try to bring Jessie home. And you know what? The basic concept of 5 is kind of a retread of Toy Story 4. I mean, think about it. Once again, Woody is having an internal crisis and he can't get over the loss of Andy, and in this movie, Jessie can't get over the loss of Emily. But at least with Toy Story 5, it stays true to the original trilogy, unlike Toy Story 4 that basically had the message of, hey, fucking ditch your kid and do your own thing. So that's another pro for Toy Story 5. And I know there's going to be some hyper analysts out there who might be watching this part of the video and will say, actually... And all I have to say is talk to the middle finger because I don't give a shit. And even if the hyper analysts of YouTube want to try to convince me that this isn't a rehash of previous movies, it doesn't change the fact that when many people, including myself, rewatch this movie over and 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 over again, eventually we're gonna say, we've done this song and dance before. Everything that this movie is doing, the previous movie already did better. And you can just tell that they're desperately trying to scrape at the bottom of the barrel to justify this installment's existence. This is where things like the flashbacks, as well as the entire film taking place in Emily's house, really begins to show. Say what you will about Toy Story 4, and believe me, there's a lot to say about that goddamn movie because there's very little to like about it. But even it wasn't this shameless in terms of nostalgia baiting. Wait a minute. Like Jesus Christ, Andrew, you couldn't keep these things in the past, could ya? Well, I guess I shouldn't be that shocked considering that Finding Dory was just a carbon copy of Finding Nemo. Actually...
Shut up! Shut your fucking mouth, you're so annoying. Oh my god.
Oh, and speaking of which, I should probably say that when it comes to the other characters, everybody with the exception of Bonnie, Jessie, and Lily Pad are pretty much here for the sake of being here. Meaning that most of these fucking characters don't add much, and never is that more apparent than when it comes to Bonnie and Andy's toys. I swear, ever since Toy Story 4, these characters have been nothing but background noise. And in fact, there's another mistake that Toy Story 5 carries over from Toy Story 4, focusing on the new characters instead of the old ones. Remember how I brought up Smarty Pants, Snappy, and Atlas? Yeah, these guys get more attention and screen time because they're stuck with Jessie and Bullseye. Meanwhile, with Bonnie and Andy's toys, as well as Woody and Buzz, they're just sitting at the house twiddling their goddamn thumbs. You know what? Say what you will about these guys, but at least the writers did something with them in Toy Story 2 and 3, rather than just having them sit there and do nothing.
Listen up, everyone. Lily and Jessie have a plan to help Bonnie. Okay, what do you need us to do? Nothing. That's easy.
And speaking of Woody and Buzz, even though I will admit it's nice to see these two working together as a team again, I have criticisms to make.
Why do you criticize everything?
I will say Buzz is not as insufferable to watch as he was in Toy Story 4, but that's not exactly a high bar to begin with because his character is nowhere near as well written or well handled as he was in the original trilogy. His whole thing in this movie is trying to get Jessie to marry him, and then he starts butting heads with Woody because of that jealousy. That's it. That's the extent of Buzz's role. They took something that they utterly forgot in Toy Story 4, and they made that the catalyst of his character in this movie. That's it. That's just what they do with him. But luckily, he did get that kid. And as for Woody, he might as well not have been in this movie because he really didn't contribute that much. And honestly, it felt like they only brought him back because they knew this movie wouldn't be a box office hit without him. You don't believe me? Andrew Stanton wrote a first draft script of Toy Story 5 without Woody, and I'm pretty sure the rat looked at the script and was like, haha, no way, you gotta put that cowboy in there. We're not gonna be able to make $1 billion with a girl.
You sexist. Get the fuck out of my office.
And because a lot of people bitched and whined at the end of Toy Story 4, this was another reason why Woody was brought back. And all I have to say is, I hope you guys are happy with Woody being here, because all they do with him are balding jokes, old man jokes, and fat beer gut jokes.
It's good to be back. Well, what?
Nothing. Love the poncho. Someone needs a brown marker.
Wow, she really let things go.
Oh my.
Oh.
What are you? You like some sort of old man toy?
What? She thinks you're old because you're bald, Woody.
Why, you little...
This is serious stuff, Buffalo Bill. Bonnie is missing out.
Buffalo Bill?
Well, who's this old man?
Why do people keep saying that? I'm not that old!
You make us proud to be toys, Jesse. What are you doing? Sorry, guys, sorry.
And for those innocent, naive, dumbass souls who thought there was a chance that Toy Story 4 will be null and void because, hey, look, if Woody is here, there's a chance he'll just ditch the Lost Toy Gang and hang out with his old group again. No, after his role is done, he immediately goes back with Bo Peep, Duke-a-Boom, Giggle McDimples, and Ducky and Bunny to be a lost toy again.
That was pointless.
Oh yeah, speaking of the Lost Toy Gang, Bo Peep, Giggle McDimples, Duke-a-Boom, and Ducky and Bunny do precisely fuck all in this flick. They're only here for the sake of a cameo. And I think it's really funny that Ducky and Bunny don't even get a single speaking line in this movie. Honestly, instead of Woody, I feel like they should have gone with Forky instead, especially with how much they shove this little shit down your throat in the previous flick. But I know there is a certain somebody who really hates this eating utensil, so they went with Woody instead. Well, GM13, I hope it was worth it. Oh shit, I forgot about the high-tech buzzes again. I'm sorry, they just add very little to this movie. I'm telling you, you could easily cut them out and not much of anything would change. In fact, with the extra time that's dedicated to the Buzz Lightyears, we could actually dedicate more time to important things like Andy and Bonnie's toys, for example. But nope, no, that's not allowed. We gotta dedicate more time to the high-tech Buzz Lightyear so we can make more merchandise on Buzz, you know what I mean?
No.
And even then, they only end up being useful at the end of the film. When Lilypad, Jessie, Woody, Smarty Pants, Atlas, and Clipper are stuck on that one truck, they think that all hope is lost, but since the Buzz Lightyears are high-tech, they just use them to fly all the toys out of there. Like, that's it. Again, if you're not thinking about their scenes, sure, they may be kind of enjoyable to watch if you just turn your brain off and just ignore the fact that they have no relevance to the plot. And maybe it might be funny the first time they say, Star Command to Star Command. But it doesn't change the fact that it's literally Pixar trying to do their own Minions from Despicable Me. But slightly more tolerable.
But there is no need to start a riot.
That's a great idea.
Let's start a riot.
Also, even though I did praise the commentary in this movie, I feel like they could have gone a little bit harder on tablets and social media and the negative effects that can come with it, especially when the topic of kids using social media is brought up. Because I feel like children do way worse shit than just making fun of others for playing with toys. Like, I feel like they could have gone a little bit deeper in that, but considering that this is made by Disney, and their job is to make sure that you keep your eyes glued to the screen and eat whatever garbage they shovel down your throat, obviously they can't go too far on the commentary front. So they have to... Jesus Lord. They have to half-ass it and say stuff like, you know, toys and tech, they both have their problems, you know what I mean?
No.
Okay, for this next con, I need to preface this by saying that this is just an extra thing I have in my notes, and it's not the fault of anyone, okay? It's not anyone's fault. But I couldn't help but notice that the actors are getting a little too old to play these characters. Now, thankfully, it's not a Simpsons problem where my body physically recoils in its skin at the sound of hearing these old voices come out of these characters, but, it's getting there. Like, it's really getting there. Like, look at some of the trailers and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Me and the toys have been working all summer to try and get Bonnie to make friends with the Jordan twins across the street. Yeah. But then you had to ruin it with all your stupid... You're not even listening to me.
It's called a poncho, Forky. Thought I'd change it up. Yeah? Well, Bo likes it. I know it's just a pretend ceremony, and Bonnie usually decides these things, but, well, if it were up to me, you'd be my best man.
Oh my god, the voice is so old.
I honestly can't tell. I don't compare turds. Look at these two turds. Which one would you rather eat?
Now it's time for the million-dollar question. Which movie is better, Toy Story 4 or Toy Story 5? Oh, come on, guys. You know the answer to that one. Obviously, Toy Story 5 is the superior sequel. This sequel actually manages to stay true to what the original trilogy is all about. It handles its characters relatively well, especially compared to 4. The commentary on tech is well done, the antagonist is way better compared to Gabby Gabby, and the experience overall didn't make me want to blow my head off with a shotgun. In Minecraft, I think it's a decent experience overall, but there are some things that Toy Story 5 is lacking. It makes the mistake of not giving its supporting cast anything meaningful to do. It's really not that funny compared to 4, which I think is the funniest film out of the bunch. And get ready for a hot take. I actually think the animation of 4 is better than 5, but that's just my opinion. Just relax, just calm down, put the pitchforks down, it's not that serious. So yeah, 5 is better even though it is lacking in a couple of areas compared to 4.
Toy Story 19. Milking this franchise to infinity and beyond.
And that is my review of Toy Story 5. A small step up, I will admit that, but still completely unnecessary. And if there are any Pixar or Toy Story fanboys who are immediately going to wrap their legs around my neck and strangle me to death WWE style, and then bitch and whine about how I'm wrong and they're right for liking this movie and thinking 4 and 5 are justified sequels, do me a favor, go outside and consume a large amount of grass. The world is not Twitter or Blue Sky, okay? Relax. Just calm down. Fuck. Anyway, that's all I gotta say. What did you guys think of Toy Story 5? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was a step up compared to Toy Story 4? Or did you think it was weaker compared to Toy Story 4? Are you excited for Toy Story 6? Because since this movie is gonna make $1 billion at the box office, that's almost a guaranteed sequel we're gonna get. And yeah, tell me in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys later.